Hello and welcome to another Hawkview Collector instruction video. In this video, we will be looking at views, what they are and how you can create your own. But first, I'm going to draw your attention to the Hawkview Collector instruction manual, which can be accessed through the software via the Help button. Everything we're going to talk about today is available in much more detail in the manual, and I do strongly suggest that you read through it to find more information on the topic. So views are essentially the bread and butter of Hawkview. It's what makes it such a powerful software. It's the ability to combine trends and view trends side by side that come from any acquisition, regardless of source, if it's an imported from a CSV file or if it's generated by an equation. They also let you manipulate your data and view it in ways that make it more useful and more obvious what kind of issues might be arising from your data or what kind of points of interest you might want to show to your potential clients or whatnot. So everything in Hawkview is organized or is at least displayed in a view. If you were to, let's say, in my work tree here, I have a list of acquisitions. If I were to open an acquisition, it opens up the data displayed in a view. So I can use this, I can scroll to zoom in, zoom out on the axis or on just the viewer itself. And I can get a good view, a good idea of what I'm looking at. This is just some random data that's generated by a simulator, but I have a better example here, right, where I can zoom in on a certain section that may be more interesting. So what we'll do is we'll go through the toolbar here, and then we'll go through how you can add or remove trends from your views and create your own customized views. And then we'll go over some of the features around that. So we'll start with this trend here. We'll open up a live acquisition just to get a better idea. So you have on your toolbar your selection option, hairline, which you can click and draw up a hairline somewhere on your viewer, and that'll give you the value in the legend on the bottom and the time at that hairline. Should you drop your hairline beyond running data, it will just give you the last value at the time of dropping your hairline. Next is the auto refresh option, which you can toggle for running acquisitions. So I can have it off, at which point my viewer will stop refreshing. And then I can have it set to 1 second intervals, 2 second intervals, 5 or 10 second intervals to automatically refresh the viewer. There's also the manual refresh. So if I were to stop my auto refresh, and then I were to click on the manual refresh, it would just does as it says, it refreshes your viewer. Let's turn this auto refresh back on and go on to the zooms. So the zooms are listed here. You have the zoom all, which essentially takes all your data and fits the viewer to it. So in this case here, my trends are overlapping. So I have from 0 seconds to 350 some seconds. I can also use a best zoom in Y and in a zoom stack. So if I were to do the zoom stack, what that does is it takes each of my axes and allocates an equal portion of the viewer to them so that I can more easily view my data side by side. If I were to use these views in a larger acquisition, for instance, if I were to zoom in on a section here and then click zoom all, it would give me the overall picture again. If I were to use zoom in on a picture and use the zoom in the y-axis, you'll notice that my x-axis, the time axis, stays the same, but I get all of my trends fitted to the y-axis. If I were to use the zoom stack, well, there's only one axis here, so it doesn't do too much, but if I were to control click on the zoom and stack, it would split each trend into its own axis and then allocate an equal share of the viewer to each axis and allow me to view my trends side by side. Similarly, I can use the shift click on my zoom all or my zoom Y to rejoin my axis all together. Control click on the zoom Y to split them. This, however, will not allocate an equal share. It will just do the best zoom over the entire viewer for all of my trends. So let's rejoin all the trends with the shift click on zoom all. Let's move back over to our live acquisition and take a look at some of the moving features. So obviously I can grab and drag the axis to scroll them. I can also use these move left and move right. And I can also use this go to end feature. When the go to end feature is applied to a live acquisition, the auto scroll feature is automatically enabled. You can see that by the box outlined around the go to end button. What this does is at a certain percentage of your viewer, so at 90% of your viewer, the go to end function will be called again and your viewer will move along with your axis. So the go to end moves your trends in such a way that they are displayed in 2/3 of the viewer, and once they reach 90%, it will reposition them to 2/3 of your viewer and allow you to monitor your trends as they're running. So we see this here, this will slowly move towards the end and it'll be refreshed. This feature can be removed by toggling it, so clicking it again, or if you move your x-axis, or if you change the scale, or sorry, rather if you change the range of your x-axis by right-clicking on it. So you can see here, I'm going to reach the end of it, and it moves the viewer. So as I said, you can right-click on your x-axis, and you can change the limits, absolute relative time. You can change the displayed units to minutes, hours, or days. It's something that is more conveniently displaying your data. For instance, in this larger acquisition, it might be more convenient to view this in days. So I can see, oh, the 16th day, something happened here. You can also rename your axis. The unit is always included, so if I want to rename this, let's say I want to call this days, time in March. So the time in March, and then in minutes, hours, days will be specified based on the selection here. The next option in the toolbar is the views option, and this is where you're going to be able to configure your views and save them. So I can go in here for each window, for each tab I have open, they have their own view properties, and I can edit the view, and it'll give me a list of all the tags that are in this view, and I can remove some, I can add some, and it should be noted that that does not decouple the tags from the acquisition. It simply removes them from the viewer so you can see better what's going on. Perhaps you might have too many trends showing here, so you can hide them all and only show the 2 or 3 that you're interested in. So you can click this, I can go apply, and then the ones that I unchecked are now gone. So I have a much less cluttered view. I can save my view now. So if I wanted to save it, now because this was a view that's generated from an acquisition, it's not already saved in my work tree as its independent view. I have to give it a name. So I'll call this, the default name is the name of the acquisition underscore view. I'll just keep that for now. But you can name it whatever you'd like. And you see that it appears in the work tree under views. Now the neat thing about views is that it's not just the trends, what trends are in it that you're saving, it's the timestamp that you're looking at. So let's say I wanted to look at, if I go by days again, I want to say, well, between the 12th and the 16th day, there's some interesting stuff happening. Well, I can go here and I can save this. And now if I were to close the window, it's not saving any changes since then, and open it, well, we're now between the 12th and 16th days. So it's perfect, it's exactly what I wanted. One thing that I did forget to note on the zooms is the zoom box, which lets you zoom in, as it says, a box. You can also use the control. If you're holding down control and click with the zoom box, it lets you zoom only along the x-axis and you maintain the same y range. Now, since I've already saved this view over a certain time range, we said from 12 to 16 days, and I've now made some changes. In fact, let's make some more changes. Let's right-click, hide trend, and then let's edit the view, and let's add another. Let's add this trend to it. All right, and let's join these together. Get into how that works in a minute. All right, so now I've made some changes to the view, but what I want to do is, maybe I don't like this, I want to go back to how it was before. We'll have the revert to last save, which brings me back to the same trends and the same time frame for my last save on this view. And if you do want to save multiple things in one view, there's always the save as, which lets you add another. Now I have two. These are saved at the same time, so not terribly useful, but I can make changes and save it. The next thing is the trend visibility. Now what this does is it lets you hide or show all the trends in your view without removing them from your view. So this is more like a quick way to, oh, you know what, I want to hide this one real quick. I can hide it, and then I can show it again. You can also open up the visible trends menu, which shows you all the trends inside this view, unless you check the ones you want to see and don't want to hide. Finally, there's a few other options here, like you can copy an image of your view to the clipboard to paste into another application or software. You can just print it directly to a printer. The export feature lets you export the data in this view to an NTEC file or CSV file. Consult the user manual on how that works, or see the exportation instruction video. There's also the stop button if you have running acquisitions. For example, here we have running acquisitions, and we can click the stop button to stop them. We can also view the acquisition properties, and we can create a model and view the statistics. We will get into the model in another video as well. There's more information in the user manual on how to create models and tunings that go with them. The statistics window will show the channel minimum, maximum, span, and other stats that go along with it for the time frame that you have selected. So the view time frame and the channels in the view. The legend itself on the bottom can be used to quickly access trends if you cannot find them in your view. So any option that you can do on the trend, for instance, if you right-click on a trend, there's a number of options. You can also do it from the legend. Additionally, the legend lets you quickly see what the source of your acquisition is. For instance, a trend that has a circle will be from a Hawkview system, a trend that has a triangle will be imported either from a CSV file or a Rockwell file. A trend that has a square is from an OPC acquisition. And a trend that has a triangle is generated from an equation. This is a very quick way of visualizing, if you have multiple trends in one viewer, where they all come from. The legend also lets you view more information. For instance, if you right-click anywhere on the legend, you'll have the option to change the position and the columns. If you go in the columns section, you can change the different columns in the legend and view more options. If I check off all these, I can see what the equation used here is a first order filter, the span, the units, etc. I can go to my live acquisition, which is this one here. I can right click, columns, show current value, and it shows the current value that was last read or last received by the source. Other than that, the options on the legend are the same as those on the trend, so I can save the tag configuration. I can recalibrate only if it is a Hawkview system. I can change the hairline display between absolute time, for said trend, and relative time in seconds. I can change the precision displayed. So for instance, if I change this, by default it is on auto. I can change it to only show 2 digits past the decimal point, or I can show up to 9. Let's put it back on auto. I can change the color of my trend, and the color is saved in the view. So if I were to change the color and save my view, whenever I would open my view, it would have the same color. I can send my trend to the front or back of the foreground or background of the viewer. So in this case here, let's take these as they overlap and change bring to front. And you can see that it's now in front. I can detach my trends from the y-axis. In this case, they're all on their own y-axis, so the detaching serves nothing. I can hide them. And I can add them to an existing view. So if I have, let's take another example here, my sample equation. Let's take our sample equation here and add it to our sample acquisition view. So now we have our equation in the view. And we can manipulate it, we can save it, or we can just revert it to go back to how it was before the equation was added. I can create a new equation from that tag. So if I do that, it opens a new equation window with the tag pre-selected, and then the rest of the fields I would have to enter myself. And of course, it shows the tag name when you right-click. The last thing to show in the legend and the trend manipulation is separating tags or separating trends from their common y-axis. So in this case, I have one y-axis with 3 trends. I can grab the indicator and drag it off, and that separates it from that axis. So the one that I dragged is now no longer attached. It has its own axis. It can move independently of the others. And there's no limit to the number of axes you can have. Of course, at one point, you're going to have too many axes that you won't see much because they just keep shrinking your view area. You need a place to put them. So if I were to take this one here, and if I were to split them all, you see it takes a good chunk of the area. And if you have 40 or 50 acquisitions, or tags rather, in the same acquisition, you might have a hard time viewing what's left if you split them all. All right, now if you want to create an acquisition, or sorry, a view from scratch without having to base yourself on other views, There's two ways you can do that. The first is to right-click on the Views node in the tree view. Click on New, and that opens the View Configuration window with nothing selected. And you can go through and you can select the trends you want. And this has a similar time range preview as the equation source window, in that you can see the ones that are selected and you can see how they overlap and with respect to one another, how they're positioned in time. So let's grab some of these, just throw them together. This might not work too well because if they're too far apart, obviously I won't see too much. These look like they're all very similar together, so let's grab these. And let's actually, in the time range preview, go to selected. And you can see, okay, yeah, these are actually not overlapping, but they are much closer than the others. You can also look and filter by specific time range. View only the stopped, only the running, only those you have already selected, those that overlap with selected, those that have the same names, that come from the same acquisition, and by specific text. So it's a convenient text filter. So let's grab these and make a test view and start that. Then we'll see that these are acquisitions. These are our trends from the two different acquisitions in the same view together. They do not overlap very well in time, so this is not a great example on how you can use them to compare. But if I were to restart this acquisition, or even restart this acquisition, I can grab this one. Let's take the one we just restarted, edit view, filter out for running, and put the other sample Hawkview acquisition in with it. Apply, okay. And now if we split all our axes, we see we no longer have 3, we have 6, because we have 2 times each trend. The other way that you can create a view is from the Tools menu. You have the New View option, and you're back at the View Configuration window. If you have multiple running acquisitions in one viewer, your toolbars will change slightly, in the sense that to view the properties, you have a drop-down menu, and you can view them by acquisition. So here I have 3 from each acquisition, so I have 2 acquisitions. If I had 1 from each acquisition, so 6, I would have 6 options in this menu. Similarly, to stop an acquisition from a view, you have a drop-down for the views to, or the acquisitions to stop from this view. And that is pretty much it for how to create and handle your own views. I hope this video was helpful, and thanks again for watching.